static? Charlie tapping lines again. Grossi still pressing buttons in Vienna. Talking shit from a desk.
Oh, Mr. Dino!
Charlie call in like he know that code. Voice cracked up, couldn't hold that load. Say Tokyo, but the heat ain't there. Talk real greasy from a folding chair. Say Dana line, say he got no facts, but we see melt and we know the tracks. Grossi feed scripts from a lockbox room. Just a big play with a clickbait boom. Boom, boom. He say, just wait. Long jump soon. He gon' test fate.
Operation Long Jump.
Call up Dana, try to play that role. Say Operation Voice off stage. Stream stay live, he just sound caged. Scripts don't hit that bluff too clean. He don't debate,
so awesome.
He repeat the screen. Say just you wait, but the call don't land. Whole thing run by Grossi's hand. Grossi push papers, slide that task. Charlie just read from a handler mask. He claimed meltdown never took place, but the water still flash and the rod still trace. He say scam show, then his line cut.
Always takes me a minute tonight. I think it's 6 to get up and running. My apologies. There is no legitimate excuse why it takes. It's a lot of work. Okay. Welcome to the madness. Is Iran doomed like Ukraine without nuclear weapons? Like Afghanistan, like Iraq. Etc., etc. Oh. I gotta figure that out now, do I? It's okay. We'll figure it out in a minute here. Bloop, 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 bloop. My apologies that I'm not up to full speed here tonight. Let's do it right there. A few technical difficulties. We're almost ready to go. So, we got a lot of stories on Iran and Israel tonight. And nuclear and Fukushima. So we're just going to take our time and meander through that stuff. You know, the question is, because there's, today in particular and yesterday, certainly for the last week, there's been a big amount of rhetoric in the news. All the news is out trying to bludgeon Iran into submission. Iran is not going to give up its nuclear enrichment or anything else. Simply going to end up like Ukraine if it does. And so the next question is Iran going to attack Israel's nuclear sites? If they're attacked. If their nuclear sites are attacked, I can guarantee you they're going to wipe out Israel's nuclear sites before the planes can get back from Israel. And they're going to take out all the infrastructure, the fresh water, water filtration facilities, the power plants, the wharfs, the airports. It's all going to be taken out right away. I'm still catching up here, so my apologies. And so then the question is, first off, Israel is not willing to sacrifice all that. But Iran will end up just like Ukraine or worse, ultimately, if they don't have nuclear weapons. That's the only thing that keeps peace with the idiots, right? With the constant misery machine. We're almost there, my apologies. Once we start rocking here, we'll definitely be kicking some big media stories. So there's a lot, and you've seen all this posturing, and I'm going to show you a bunch of it from the mainstream media. But Iran is very methodical. They're not going to make a knee-jerk movement, okay? They have a strategic plan in place. They're going to implement that plan. And the stories are getting a little bit more concerning by the minute. Here we go. We're almost ready. Double talk for we're not ready. The first story we're going to cover, and we got a lot of Iran stories to cover. Can't keep up with everything, but we're going to go with nuclear tonight. All right, we're just moments away from kicking it into second gear. Hope everybody's doing okay. Just got to make some more adjustments. We got a new computer system, and I had to use. I only have a bigger screen, and so I got that mounted right here. And it's not. I had to cut the legs off the table that it's on. Some last minute adjustments. We're almost there. And then we get some interesting questions. Well, the first story is going to be on Fukushima. It's not a long story. Then we're straight into the nuclear madness. Iran must stop and eliminate nuclear enrichment. That's the next story. It didn't work. Hang on. So yeah, we got some serious questions to ask ourselves. And here we go. Hope you had a great few days. I've been down and out of the game since last week. A lot of problems and health problems too last week. We had electricity problems, right? And that turned out to be the telephone pole itself, so they came and fixed that eventually. And so we got full power back again. There was some nightmare, all those extension cords for the last show, right? And it was back and forth to the hospital, back and forth, finding the doctors, got a doctor temporarily. And the medication kind of kicked my ass. Still is, right? We got 226 on the Geiger counter up there. I'm feeling good now. We're almost up and running. There was almost no show tonight because the medication really took the life out of me. Like puts you to sleep, right? You can't. And they're starting me off slow. So in 2 weeks that dose is going to increase. Anyway, we're up. We're up and we're at it. We got two Israeli-Iran stories to cover. Then we're going to cover Fukushima story. But then there's a lot of Israeli and Iran stories to cover tonight. Hence the name of the show tonight. And away we go. Hope my audio's good. Checkmate, checking. Just kidding you. We still got a little bit of... We still got a little bit of lower thirds to get through. I'm Dana. Welcome in Canada. And so you can call in or hack me at 709-589-4406. If you got any input on Iran, that'll be interesting. That'll be fun. All lines are currently open. Probably will be for the rest of the night. Israel still weighing strikes against Iran. They're not going to go strike Iran on their own. America knows that Iran's going to whop the shit out of all their assets in the east, right? Qatar, all these little regimes are only going to last a few hours or maybe 24 hours, but that's it. They're all gone. The entire regimes are going to be gone. They don't have a military. They got the military bases from America and Israel and France and that. Probably G7, probably United Nations, right? But Iran is good to go. They're ready to fight. They don't want to fight. I don't blame them. Who would? They most likely got nuclear weapons. And who can blame them? And this is a big concern to everything with replicating cells on the planet. Unfortunately, it's not like conventional weapons, right? The fallout is distributed worldwide right away. They're always incredibly hateful New York Post, New York Times, whatever. They're always just going to be... They're just going to be full-on... Yeah, we're off and running, are we? Here it looks like it. I'm going to go up to the bigger screen. Big screen, the big shot screen. It's kind of backwards, but hey, let's roll with it. Should that be... Yeah, I thought that was on the shortest time, isn't it? As a result, Israel is now eyeing a more limited attack that would require less assistance than Washington, an Israeli official, and two other sources told Reuters. This was kind of the standard. I mean, these missiles are not going to help. I got no idea what the camera's looking at. So I know how to fix that. My apologies. I'm very slow tonight. So what you're seeing is a lot of rhetoric. I think some of this rhetoric is meant to get Iran to activate some of its defenses so that they can pick it out allegedly for targets or something, right? A lot of that narratives we're seeing. Israel has not ruled out an attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. Nuclear facilities. And then the radiation covers the entire planet. The radiation covers the entire planet. This is Fukushima radioactive fallout after their nuclear facilities were attacked by a tsunami and earthquake. And stupid design. They put it in right on the continental tectonic plates, rather. With a 3,000-year legacy of massive earthquakes and tsunamis, as if this wasn't going to happen ever again. And so this plume model is 137 cesium with 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. And cesium-137, of course, doesn't travel by itself, but it pulses energy 600 feet every second. So it's a big pain in the arse for everything on the planet, every species, everything with replicating cells. A senior Israeli official said a final decision, and how many billions of bags will you have to pick up after the war of 1-ton bags of radiation? 1 billion bags? Japan picked up 30 million in 3% of Fukushima prefectures, farmlands and communities. They were trying to manipulate people into going back into the nuclear wasteland, but Iran and Israel will have to pick up billions of 1-ton bags of radioactive fallout. A senior Israeli official said the final decision on a strike has not yet been made. Of course it has. It's always been made. It's sitting there on a shelf with a big X on it. An Iranian official says Tehran was aware of the plans, however, that an attack would provoke a harsh and unwavering response in return. They're going to take out Israel's nuclear facilities, right? So if Israel hits Iran, Iran's going to hit Israel's nuclear facilities too. That's a given. And who wins that friggin' nightmare besides the devil? Oh, the devil, right? So this affects every species on the planet. Iran warns no nuclear deal unless Israel is restrained. That's not going to happen. Can anybody imagine Israel being restrained? Really? Can anybody? Anybody got evidence they're capable of that? They just use like 10 nuclear weapons and conventional bombs on Gaza, who don't have a navy, who don't have a air force, who don't have satellites, who don't have sophisticated drones, don't have an army. Israel has 4,000 plus tanks alone, not not counting, and they all shoot the 155 depleted uranium rounds, and that's what they've been doing, right? And they would tell, the million plus people that go over here, that's a safe zone, and then when you get there, they bomb them. They've been doing that, well, since their existence, but in particular since October 2023, was it? October 6th or 7th, we've been covering it on and off, but paying attention to all of it. As talks with the United States conclude in Rome, this is just posterity. This is not, there's nothing tangible going to come out of these so-called talks. Iran doesn't want a war, but if they got a war, they're ready. Israel doesn't want a war either. They can't sustain an actual direct attack, an assault from Iran. They can launch, they can overwhelm any defense that the Americans and the French and the British can muster. And it's highly probable that Iran has multiple nuclear weapons. At some point, they're going to have to come out and announce they're a nuclear power, but I guess they're waiting until they got enough weapons. And, since Israel creation has been at war with everything down there. And it's supported by the biggest military-industrial complex. So let's talk about Fukushima for a story. We got 254 chems per minute on the Geiger counter in the top right-hand corner. That's the live Geiger counter. Now 185 chems per minute of gamma. That's what it's trying to measure. 325 chems per minute. Look at that. 334 chems per minute. My goodness. I should move out of this place, off this continent. Fukushima robot begins second attempt to retrieve melted nuclear fuel. That story, the last show was on this particular story. We burnt them pretty good, I think. I like to think anyway. This is their contraption. It took them 4 years to build this or something. It was $40 million plus, and it's like a fishing rod that extends out, and then there's a contraption that it's going to take like 6 days to lower it down and 6 more days to bring it back up. It's going to take around 12 days. And it's meant to get a piece of the fuel the size of a raisin. Well, the last time they said everything was the size of a grain of rice. So stupid. If they just put some duct tape on it, they would have enough they would never need to do this again. Or if they'd used a vacuum cleaner on it. Does the Japanese know how to use a vacuum cleaner, I wonder? Are they smart enough to figure out how to use a vacuum cleaner? I don't know. I don't think so, actually. Not in the nuclear industry, anyway. The effort's built on a first trial run conducted in November last year, where they got a size of the fuel, which was the size of a grain of rice. A tiny amount of debris, less than a gram. If they had to put some duct tape on this idiot-looking machine, this tong. It's quite interesting that that's all they can get their hands on. Because I don't know if you remember, but we're talking about 36 reactor cores. This is on the 15th. This is day 5, if you count March 11th itself. And there's 4 reactors, and at the top of each building is 8 reactor cores. These are huge reactors. Each reactor core is equal to about 100 Chernobyls. So, like, first, the buildings actually ejected the reactor cores and the fuel pool's right out of reactor 3 to your left. But the only sample they can get is the size of a grain of, I'm sorry, not they changed the story since last year. Now they're saying it's the size of a raisin, a dried up little raisin like you would get, like a little tiny bag of raisins. It's a little tiny. That's the radioactive fallout after 23 days. We're right back to Israel and Iran in a few months. We've got a lot of stories tonight to get through. I just wanted to touch on this story again because if they put duct tape on the top of it then they would just go down, touch the ground, and come back with all kinds of samples, all of much bigger than the alleged gram that they got the last time. It's a total scam what they're doing, right? The reactors are gone. It's the bait and switch routine. And this stuff is absurd. The whole story is absurd. But another facet to remember of this is the same media that's saying Iran is this and Iran is that is the same people that are pretending they're on top of Fukushima Reactor 4 fuel pool that doesn't exist. On a building that had 9 reactor cores melt down in, because they have decades of reactor cores in the fuel pools. The robotic system known as Telesco is equipped with an extendable arm, a camera. Oh my God! And that's the idea is to drag you into this fantasy land that they constructed, and a gripping tool. It's designed to function in a high radiation zone. It's like it would have been better if they had just put chopsticks on the end of it, which is probably what they originally done, right? It's just a pincher. Takes 6 days to get out there and drop it down, and then they go boink. They got to pull it up and look at it and see if there's something in it. And they had made modifications, as we were covering last week on the last show, actually, extensively. And the modifications turns out to be a camera. That's not modifications. They're doing everything they can to make it sound sophisticated and that they have the IQ of a Floyd, but it doesn't match up at all. It is expected to take up to 12 days for the robot's tip to reach the new target location. They're so good at telling whoppers, eh? If we have a contest for the world's biggest lie, then they're going to win it hands down. The disaster triggered one of the worst nuclear accidents in history. It's the worst. It's 4 reactor cores with 9 or 8 reactor cores in the fuel pools of each of the buildings. Chernobyl was a brand new reactor. It was a graphite reactor. It didn't have any fuel pools at the top of the buildings. Each of these reactor cores, we're talking about 36 of them at Fukushima that are gone in 4 buildings because of the fuel pools, right? Double fuel pools in each building. They said it's 880 tons, but that's simply not true. 880 tons across 3 reactors. So they refused them to acknowledge reactor 4 melted down. It's quite convenient. Because that's 9 reactor cores they don't have to account for, right? So they're off to a good chip eat out, eh? Because they like chipping away at every facet of this story over the last 14 years. But back in the day, I kind of remember this story. This is March the 15th, by the way. This is day 5 of Fukushima. And nobody's ever disputed this story. This story was never contested. It would be like Chernobyl on steroid if a spent fuel catches fired and they're in 2 pools at the top of each of the reactor buildings because they don't have a repository anywhere on the planet, let alone in backwards Japan. If the spent fuel catches fire, says a nuclear engineer, somebody who knows, who works at an identical plant, that each reactor building, not each reactor, but each reactor building holds 3,450 spent fuel assemblies. And they weigh 1,800 pounds each. So each building has 6.2 million pounds roughly. Which means in ton each they got 2,800 tons. Not 800 tons, but 2,800 tons. 3.2 times more than they're acknowledging. And they're claiming all the reactors total is only 800 tons. But each of the reactors in Japan is 3.2 times more than that. It's 2,800 tons. And so when you look at the 4 buildings, you're talking about 12.8 times more than the 800 tons that they acknowledge, or 880 tons, or whatever it is. Yeah, 880 original tons. So it's 4 times 6,200,000 pounds. And it takes them 12 days to get a piece the size of a gram out of the buildings. Well, there could be some truth to that, I suppose. I mean, reactor 4 is not being counted. Reactor 3 ejected the reactor core and the fuel pool right out of the buildings. 9 reactor cores ejected out of the buildings. Each reactor holds 3,450 spent fuel assemblies. And they're 1,800 pounds each. They're 12 feet long. Each assembly has 100 fuel rods. Each fuel rod is 18 pounds, and there's 100 of them, and they're 12 feet long, the assemblies. I'll get back to Iran in a moment, I'm sure. The common spent fuel pool held 6,291 fuel rods, and the common spent fuel pool, which we know had a recriticality, so it had a meltdown and then a recriticality, another meltdown. The common pool has windows on one side, which were almost certainly destroyed by the tsunami. When you look at the pictures of the common spent fuel pool, that even though they're redacted, you can see about 100 transport trucks stacked up behind it, the containers, right? This means the Fukushima Daiichi plant may contain over, is way worse than that. Each assembly holds 63 fuel rods. No, why would you only put 63 fuel rods in an assembly when they hold 100? What's the point of having 100 spots for the fuel if you're not going to maximize it, right? Because they don't have a repository. Each of those assemblies are stuffed. Each reactor top pool holds 3,450 assemblies. So add another 10 million pounds on the last number. So the alleged tongs is unit 2, right? Because reactor 3, as I showed you, is gone. Reactor 4 is gone. And it started in 1974. It should encounter a big earth tremor. It will be destroyed and scattered remaining nuclear fuel and debris, making Tokyo metropolitan uninhabitable. Well, then the question is, reactor 3 was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor. It was infinitely worse than reactor 2, 1, and 3 combined. So how come Tokyo is not uninhabitable? Because that's the cover story, right? The samples from the previous mission was roughly the size of a raisin. No, it wasn't roughly the size of a raisin because we covered it. Literally almost every story they put out about it. It was the size of a grain of rice. And so instead of putting duct tape on that, right, a big strings of duct tape on it, and go down there and let that land somewhere, and that'll bring up all the samples they would ever need. No, they pretend that this is the most sophisticated operation in human history, but people don't understand it. They don't show you those pictures very often, by the way, that I'm showing you. They'll show you stuff like this, which doesn't give you any context. The ultimate aim is to develop the technology and techniques needed for large-scale fuel removal, set to begin in the 2030s at the number 3 reactor. So now they just introduced the number 3 reactor, which doesn't exist. The fuel pools and the reactor cores are gone, as you see with the explosion I showed you earlier. We're almost through the story. A couple of more clicks, 2 more clicks. TEPCO, which shouldn't exist and should be in capital letters, because it's not a word, it's an acronym, says it may revert to collecting a sample from the previous location if the robot is unable to reach the deeper site due to obstructions. These people tell so many lies. They can't even keep their lies straight. TEPCO last year confirmed a telescopic retrieval system being upgraded since its first use with a new camera. That's an upgrade now, apparently. They got a new camera, and the stupidest contraption I ever seen. $40 million later, and they still... Why wouldn't you hook up a vacuum cleaner to it? Why wouldn't you hook up duct tape to it? Just string duct tape off it. You'll do way better than whatever you want to call that stupid-looking contraption. Yep. We finally got the right screen size. Full screen. Wow. I love it. Oh, another votes going back and forth. Is Iran doomed like Ukraine without nuclear weapons? I mean, that's a legitimate question. Come on. It's a legitimate question. Well, yeah. The only reason Israel still exists is because they got nuclear weapons. Witkoff previously suggested the United States is seeking to curb Iran's uranium enrichment program, not abolish it. That's quite an interesting statement from Al Jazeera, and they got the clip to go with it. Iran must stop and eliminate the nuclear enrichment. Why would a country give up its, which is the worst thing that can happen to the planet is nuclear? But, if you're going to be rational, then why would Iran give up their ability, because they've been, land, sea, and air embargoes that have just destroyed the health and the lives of millions of children, say, for instance, just in Iran, not counting all the other countries. United States Special Envoy Witkoff has said that Tehran must stop and eliminate its nuclear enrichment. It's never going to happen. You really think this is 2015 all over again? That's 9 years ago. Iran is one of the top, probably the top 10 at least, or even better, nuclear country on the planet. They have the top 4 nanotechnology on the planet, for goodness sakes. They're very sophisticated. We know they're rich to at least 60%. So it's not a far cry to suggest. We know they got thousands of miles of underground tunnels, deep tunnels. They're not going to get at it with nuclear weapons. If they keep throwing nuclear weapons down in the hole, they contaminate the entire planet. And if they strike the nuclear plants, then Iran is going to strike their nuclear plants. Nobody's the winner of that event, okay? Every species on the planet which is already compromised because of 80 years of emissions from the nuclear plants worldwide, because of the fuel pools are always splitting atoms. Then you have all the dumping, all the accidents. You got 30 years of dumping just with the United Kingdom, going out and dumping barrels on the continental shelf, for goodness sakes. The nursery of the Atlantic Ocean. Just because you got the lapdogs of the military-industrial complex in Iran coming out saying they got to stop it, Iran's not going to listen to any of that. They're not going to give up their program because they're going to go the way of the dodo bird right away if they do. Nobody's winning this battle on top of that. And then I'm not seeing anybody out there with the narratives I'm giving you tonight. I haven't seen a single, in all these years really, I haven't seen a single person come out and ask these questions. This is it, of course. This is the problem, of course, right? You do not need to run, as they claim, a civil nuclear program where you're enriching past 3.67%. Of course you do. When you've got nuclear countries that are willing to destroy you, what are you supposed to do? You really think, again, right, you got to realize this industry is just completely backwards and out of control and has acquired all your medias and universities and has weaponized that against you. We need a way to take all that back from them. These people, or half humans, I should say, have compromised all the species and humanity's future. That is not acceptable, okay? Under any circumstances. Attacking Iran's nuclear means the radioactive fallout covering the whole planet. Iran's going to immediately, before the planes from Israel gets back from that attack, wreck the nuclear facilities, and they're going to overwhelm the Iron Domes. They're going to overwhelm the Americans, the British, the French self-defense of Israel technology within a day or two. It's not like there are people. I know people have got into fights with people and not expected to get punched back. They figure they're going to walk up, punch them, knock them out, and that'll be that, right? And the odds of that ever happening it happens, but the odds on a one-on-one person are way better than the odds on hundreds of thousands of sophisticated drones and supersonic missiles. And we know Iran has the radar systems from Russia, most likely, from somebody anyway, that can paint up the jet fighters from the United States that Israel was using, and Americans were flying for Israeli. The last time when they went across the border in from Iraq into Iran, they got painted up and turned back. Otherwise, they would have shot down, and then all their allies would have lost confidence, and the media wouldn't have had a proper way to cover up that story. And so they hightailed it out of there. U.S. administration of then President, and Barack Obama was the farthest thing from a president of a country. He's the president of the bootlickers for the military-industrial complex, maybe, but that's about it. Hailed at the deal as a mean of preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. If Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapons, then they're going to be just like Ukraine when the idiot machine pulls the trigger, right? The military-industrial complex. Because they always need a target. They always need a boogeyman to go attack. Nixed the deal in 2018 during his first term since then. And the reason that Iran is going ahead with the nuclear weapons program, right, is because of the last decade or so of the tax upon them, the sanctions, the land, sea, and air embargoes. But Trump, a Republican, nixed the deal in 2018. Since then, the United States, Trump is the reason that the big push went on in Iran to enrich the uranium. Since then, the United States has been piling sanctions. There's no way Iran's going to give up their nuclear weapons program. Zero. I find it extremely hard to believe and conceive that Iran doesn't have 4, 5, 10 nuclear weapons right now. I find that I just can't picture that not being real. And they're not dependent on their nuclear weapons. They have hundreds of thousands of highly sophisticated drones that we seen with the last time when Israel attacked Iran. Iran just destroyed them. They couldn't stop anything. They had the control of the media, but, you know, when you're up on BitChute and everywhere else, Rumble and that, you were seeing all the strikes. That was undeniable. Since then, the United States has been piling sanctions on Iran, and so that's a more bigger incentive now to get their nuclear weapons. Because when you feel threatened, what happens? And Tehran has escalated its nuclear program in response. Of course it has. It never stopped. It has no choice. But then again, Iran hasn't really directly attacked anybody. Israel hasn't stopped. Right? And so the hair trigger is real. Is seeking verification on weaponization from Iran, including the type of missiles that they have stockpiled there. So they need so this is not about what they're claiming. This is an information machine. See if they can take on Iran's weapons or come up with a system, right, to help Israel or anything, mitigate the damage to Israel. Because that's all anybody's worried about. Because they have dominated through the lobbying groups like AirPac. All rationale has been thrown under the rug permanently. Trump also indicated the United States could consider military action if the current round, like any military action by the Americans, is going to be attack upon Israel immediately from Iran. And Iran is going to wipe out their water, their power sources, their nuclear sites on day one. And Israel can't do nothing about it. And Israel knows that. That's why you've seen all the media coming out trying to frame the narrative. Well, you better listen to us, dear Iran. Iran don't give a fuck about you, man. Those days are long gone. Iran has moved on, and they're probably the fourth most sophisticated weapon or nuclear weapons producer, if they want to be. Trump indicates it's considered military action. If the talks aren't successful, I think Iran is going to be in great danger. Yeah, well, so will all the Americans on all the bases in the East, right? The Middle East. Those regimes are going to get taken apart on day 1 and 2 at best. At a week, the toughest one might last a week, but they're gone. There's nothing they can do about it. Iran is not going to wait for the attacks to figure out what to do. They know exactly all the targets. They have it programmed into their Scud missiles, their hypersonic missiles, their drones, their sophisticated drones. And Israel and Britain and France and the United States know that. They're aware of that. And so trying to bully a country that is ready is not going to work. That's not going to work. Ultimately, they don't want a conflict. Why would you? But if they got to, and they're ready for it, they've been ready for 20 years now. It's a mistake to think the biggest problem with Iran is nuclear weapons. The New York Times, was it? Yeah, the New York Times. And Bret Stephens, he's Israeli, he's a Jew. So you're only bringing one side to the conversation. You're not bringing anything independent. You're not finding anybody out there like me that is honest, right? That is just going to call it like it is. With the documentation that we have, we can make the assumptions of what I've done so far and what I'm going to do from here on out. Trump can also lease modern aerial tankers and old bombers to lease them to. You think Israel is going to give you a nickel? With 7,500 lobbyists that have taken over your entire Congress and Senate? You really think Israel is going to give you a nickel? Which a Jewish state would need to carry out a comprehensive attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. Yeah, I'm not doubting that they can attack Iran's nuclear facility. I'm just saying there's nothing Israel can do when Iran attacks the nuclear facilities back before the planes from Israel land after attacking Iran nuclear facilities. And that the repercussions for that are not a game. And that they don't have the right to do stuff like this or even suggest stuff like this. This is beyond outrageous and beyond dangerous. All the pro-nuclear academics are like, this is great. We can do all kinds of study on autism and Down syndrome after this. Easy work for them. Because that's going to show up worldwide right away. Attack on Iran's nuclear facility. I'm telling you right now, before the planes that attack Iran's nuclear facilities land, Israel won't have a nuclear facility, and they know it. And they're not going to attack Iran. But the only thing in this whole equation that we can't predict is meathead, moron, Benjamin Netanyahu, or whatever his real name is. He's a Polak, wasn't he? He changed his last name. It's not his real last name to sound more Israeli. But as negotiators like Trump and Witkoff should know, an olive branch is easier to accept. Let me get my big head out of the way. When it is offered from the tip of a sword. Like, you can write all these sneaky articles, Bret. But Iran got its own tricks. It's not worried about Israel. It's not worried about you. Mouthpieces like you for the military-industrial complex. At all. And so both of his parents were Jews, so he has a big incentive to come out and lie. Because that's what scumbags do, right? Speaking of scumbags, the Globe and Mail. Azincourt, and we still got quite a few Israeli-Iran stories to get through. And we got a few of these, and I'm not going to, I'm just doing the stories in the orders that I grabbed them. And it's been weird. I've been down since last week. And all weekend. I didn't really think I was going to get a show tonight. I didn't. And I'm so glad I did, finally. It's so hard, eh? It's like you haven't started an engine for 5 or 6 years and you don't know how it's going to work out when you try to start. That's what I was like tonight, trying to get a show up and running. And such is the way it is with me. My shows are best if I'm doing them constantly. My brain anyway, right? Because we're at this, I'm at this 24 hours a day, this nuclear stuff, right? For 23 years. And anything that's going to cause radioactive fallout to cover the whole planet is a big friggin' concern. It's a real concern, legitimate. And it should be for everybody that's honest. Azincourt Energy claps as Canada guns for nuclear lead. This is just, if it's from the Globe and Mail, it's pure propaganda. It's like from Israel, it's pure propaganda. And then the picture they're showing you is, I don't know how these people even survive childbirth a lot of the times. Energy Corporation that applauds the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, bootlickers, right? Who licked the boots of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission approval of Ontario Power Generation Plan to build a Canadian's first small modular reactor, the boiling water reactor X 300 megawatts, which is a 24-story building. It's got 13, 14 stories underground. They're going to call that a small modular reactor, apparently. Well, that's what they're doing, right? The approval grants Ontario provincial government a license to construct a massive small modular reactor. It's a massive small modular reactor. It's a 24-story building, 240-story building. And I'll show you a picture of this small modular reactor. The comparison, actually, I got that. Already. I forget because, yeah, there it is. It's a 24-story building. So these buildings, each of these buildings is the equivalent of a small modular reactor. You can put that on the back of a pickup truck. I'm not kidding you. That's according to them guys. You can put this on the back of a pickup truck and put it anywhere. Okay, it's going to play that game with me. 24-story building. Again, I haven't got Zoom set up on this yet. I apologize for that. Let me try one more time. Because normally you can click on this stuff and you can expand it. I'm not looking for high quality, right? Unfortunately. Let me try to fix that right now, very quick. Image size. Dana, you mean to say you haven't got that done already? Yeah, that's true. Here you go. I should be able to zoom in on that one. And then we can move back to the other story. Don't let me down now, baby. All right. So that's a small modular reactor right there. Look. Clearly that can fit on the back. You can make that in the factory, drive it down to your local football pitch and just set it up, right? These people are nuts. I mean, I still laugh every time I think about them claiming that a 24-story building is a small modular anything. If anything small and it's not modular, is their fucking brains. Is Iran doomed like Ukraine without nuclear weapons? Yeah. A few spammers, did we? That's okay. Well, yeah, they're doomed like Iran, like Ukraine, like Afghanistan, like Iraq, like Syria, if they don't get nuclear weapons. They're idiots if they don't get nuclear weapons. They're not idiots. I don't care if they beat the shit out of each other. They shouldn't be nuking the planet. Well, blah, blah, blah. Let's keep going here. Ontario provincial government full plan includes the construction of up to 4 of the 327 megawatt small modular reactor at the Darlington site. These are not small modular reactors. They just have nothing to do with a... These are also going to be used in plutonium mixed oxide fuel in order just to get a bit of extra gigawatts out of it, which would reliably generate enough zero emissions. Like each nuclear plant needs 2 dedicated, massive gas, oil, or coal plants. It's usually coal because it's cheapest. They're not going to make a profit as it is, so they usually go to cheapest of everything else for like external power. They can't run on their own power. So calling them zero emissions is absurd. Calling them reliable is absurd too. Because once you take the fuel out of the reactor core after 14 months or something, you put it in a fuel pool, everything is contaminated for 1,000 square miles. Because fuel is still splitting atoms forever. Nuclear Innovation Institute releases an annual report. The president of the Nuclear Innovation Institute credit the power of collaboration for fueling progress in the nuclear sector. None of this is true. They have the same gigawatts, literally identical, as they had in 1996. Last year, in 2024, there was 660 gigawatts of solar power, not counting everything else, but just solar power that came online in 12 months. They have a total of around 365 gigawatts for nuclear. So they almost doubled the total capacity of nuclear worldwide in 12 months with just solar power, not counting, and they're avoiding the words geothermal like it's a plague. Because the minute people start realizing geothermal abilities, they're not going to want anything else. No gas, no oil, no coal or nuclear. Yeah, hydrogen's coming, which is going to power ships and power cars and power everything else, like gasoline or diesel, right? The organization's Jessica Linthorne, we know Jessica, I don't know, we covered her enough times, said the organization's 2024 annual report, all of us innovators, can outline their growth over the year. What are you talking about? You're the same gigawatt power as you were in 1996. There's no growth. There's no nuclear renaissance. Well, being honest is not one of their stronger attributes, is it? Really building off of our core mandate, which is really looking at industry voice, skill development, industry advancements, again, working together towards a clean energy future. Thorne explains, what are you talking about clean? It's the dirtiest technology in human history on top of that. It's the most resource-intensive industry on top of that. From beginning and then forever. The launch of the Bruce Power Nexus Research Center. Nexus. So that's just so they can have another write-off and accumulate a lot more vehicles and credit cards that they can pawn off on the taxpayers. That's all that was about. Critical energy topics through events such as the 2024 Clean Energy Frontier Conference. Nuclear is not clean. It's the dirtiest, by a large margin, technology for energy that exists. It's an absurdly resource-intensive industry on top of that. Kaizen for nuclear. So they're launching all these programs that we know doesn't make a shit difference. They're just trying to maintain the current fleet as much as they can. That's what this new, because they're falling apart, so they need some innovation, right? So the industry can feel good about itself when it wakes up in the morning and looks in the mirror. We're really proud of the work that we get to do with our local mayors and our local elected officials. We're really proud. Who talks like that besides a bootlicking cheerleading lapdog? Nuclear Innovation Institute in the Southwest Ontario Isotope Coalition, which is the stuff they use to poison your loved ones in the hospital with. It's the only industry out there where they'll take your child and radiate him till he dies if you don't let them do it naturally. STEM events for the students around the region, because they need the children, right? Because the children don't know any better. So they're like capturing the children right at the university. That's what they've been infiltrated. The university's been infiltrated since the late 40s, but certainly the early 50s. Just completely compromised. They own the universities, and then by proxy they own the key positions in governments, in medias, and everywhere else. And addressing climate change. Every time I hear the word climate change, what do you think there is? You can trace climate change right back to the nuclear weapons testing, because this stuff is pulsing energy every second at the speed of light. Like the Soviet Union's biggest nuclear weapon was equal to 3,800 Nagasaki plutonium bombs going off at the same time. That's a nuclear war. You can deny it all you want. That's the radioactive fallout is the same whether you've done it in anger or accidentally or on purpose. It's the same radioactive fallout. And when you set off 3,800 Nagasaki bombs in one place, the radioactive fallout is the same thing. I mean, that thing broke windows 700 kilometers away. Or 700 miles away. Moltex, which shouldn't exist, right, was funded by the Canadian New Brunswick government and then the federal government just to set up shop there. Like the Canadian government in New Brunswick started up a company, gave the company $10 million, and then that company gave Moltex and the other company $5 million each. And then they went out and bought office space. They bought the buildings themselves and started paying themselves these incredible salaries. And what they want to do is take the Canadian fuel assemblies, and over 5.5 million of them, and reclaim uranium plutonium out of them, and then reuse that in their small modular reactors. The only way they can make the small modular reactor on paper work, produce any amount of energy at all, worth bothering with, was if they used the worst and the most wicked fuel available, the plutonium mixed oxide fuel, which is illegal in Canada, by the way, and illegal in the United States. There is some experimentation going on at the national laboratories, but it's an illegal fuel. And so they're working to undermine the Canadian constitutions and laws so that they can take the fuel and turn it into the most harmful element in human history. Like the French government, the La Hague site, for instance, in France, that is the reprocessing facility for the mixed oxide fuel, is using 500 security guards to keep you from going there with a Geiger counter or a camera and seeing the carnage. Pre-licensing consultation for recycling. The recycling process is the plutonium mixed oxide fuel, which is the most pollution-intensive industry because you have to boil the reactor fuel assemblies at 3,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures in nitrous acid, or I can't even remember off the top of my head, in acid anyway, a certain type of acid. And then the releases, they used to pump in France, they used to pump it, and Sellafield, United Kingdom, Donneray, they used to pump it underground, but what it was, that would contaminate the entire water tables. It was absurd that they done it. But because the people in the industry are not humans like me or you, they went ahead and done it. We've seen the examples in every facet of nuclear industry worldwide. Moltex Energy Canada. It's not a Canadian company. It's a British military industrial complex company, and that got $5 million from the Canadian government. Then the Canadian government has started up that company and gave Moltex and the other company, Airrex or something, don't quote me, $5 million each. And then they closed down that company, the French-Canadian government did. It was just dirty what they done, just dirty. Same as the Moltex fuel would be dirty. Like the emissions from Iran and Israel's nuclear facilities is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. Blowing them things up is the worst scenario possible. That's the worst case scenario possible. We got lots more of those stories coming up here. Well, shut up and get on with it. Has initiated pre-licensing consultation with the Canadian Nuclear Non-Safety Commission. The Canadian Nuclear Non-Safety Commission are just atrocious insiders from the industry. The rejects of humanity, every one of them. In relations to the development of the Watts process for converting uranium oxide fuel into a molten salt reactor, these are all conjectures. Isn't that backed up by technology or science? Moltex vision, because we've never had a demonstration of the Canadian fuel from the CANDU reactors being converted into plutonium mixed oxide fuel on top of that, right? Moltex vision, that's what this is. And another one of these chat GP pictures that, as we know, this is what they were showing you for the Canadian small modular reactors, literally the same thing on Lake Ontario, right? But now we know that it's going to be a 24-story building. So what they show you now is the very last thing it's going to turn out to be. Extract valuable material, radiation material, and radioactive byproducts from the used nuclear fuel in oxide form, including the CANDU light water reactor and certain fast reactor fuel, such as the mixed oxide fuels. So now they're claiming they're going to take mixed oxide fuel, bring it to Canada, and reprocess it into plutonium mixed oxide fuel. They're going to take something that's already unconscionable because of its emissions. The fuel is splitting atoms all the time. Once you take it out of the reactor, it doesn't stop splitting atoms. There's no containment. Extracts radioactive byproducts is more like it. Mixed oxide fuels, such as mixed oxide fuels. Where are they getting mixed oxide fuel in Canada? You're not. So they're going to import it in from other countries? Is that what's going on? Japan? This reduces waste volumes dramatically, but also transforms nuclear waste into clean, dispatchable energy. Simply not true. None of these assertions have documentation to back it up. They're going to eliminate plutonium. Moltex says. Not everybody else, but Moltex. Which the only way they can make a lot of money and destroy the entire country is if people believe they're... These are disgusting people, aren't they? Every time we see these people speaking, you can tell they don't have a single human attribute. Coupled with the company's stable salt reactor waste burner, it's not a technology that exists. It's like there's 100 small modular reactor companies. There's 100 fusion companies in the last 5 or 6 years that started up. None of them have a product. None of them can back up the assertions, nor can Moltex. It's not a closed fuel. You got to build a reactor at one of the national laboratories. You got to run it hard for many years to prove any of these assertions. And you don't have anything like, you're going to spend $500 million just trying to, get through the licensing, get through the regulatory hurdles. It's a very long process, thank goodness, that they're trying to get rid of all the checks and balances, which they'll probably succeed in doing because who's going to hold them accountable? Moltex said has now signed a service level agreement with the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, which means nothing. We see all of these memorandum of understandings all the time. They have no... We just don't see anything come to fruition with this stuff. And why are you looking at this when you have small modular reactors? Well, we know why they're doing it. It's not for the reasons they're claiming. It's something to do with the military-industrial complex itself. But they can't crack it. They can't seem to crack it. And going this route, why would Canada need to go this route? So Moltex can make a bunch of money? This framework will in turn allow that Canadian nuclear facilities to facilitate engagement with the degenerate agency, the UN's little butt plug, International Atomic Energy Agency. Like UN's IAEA, ERPA, UNSCLEAR, the IPRC, any of them are one and the same. Like the same people on each of these so-called committees that have no authority. They're not regulatory corporations. They have no sovereignty over any country. They're literally the most degenerate humans we've ever come across, and we've come across a lot. And I mean more than anybody's ever shared that anybody would ever want to come in contact with. And ensure best practices are incorporated into design as early as possible. This is something we see with the industry all the time, right? Where they just haywire everything. Oh, well, we'll figure it out down the road. And they never do. And they release an absurd amount that is lethal to everything with replicating cells and never goes away. And so they're worse. They are the enemy of 8 million species, and your water, your most precious and wonderful, absolutely adorable asset, water. Nuclear hates water, right? Last month, and what can we do without water on this planet? What can any species do without water on this planet? And go dodo bird, right? Moltex announced that its Watts process has been validated on used fuel bundles from a commercial reactor in Canada through hot cell experiments carried out by the Canadian Nuclear Laboratory, Chalk River National Laboratory. Why would anybody in their right mind, with half a mind, give them any credibility? Literally the worst humans we've ever come across in the north is the Chalk River National Laboratory. The company plans to deploy the first Watts unit at New Brunswick Power Point, Lepore site in New Brunswick, which is already hemorrhaging radiation from the CANDU reactor there because it's not a drinking water going straight into the ocean. They're legally releasing 40,600,000 trillion anthropogenic man-made atoms of tritium-3H legally each year into the oceans. This is more than all the reactors on the planet combined, for goodness sakes. It's the worst technology ever created, is the CANDU reactor. The commercial scale demonstration facilities recycle an anticipated 260,000 used fuel bundles from the existing CANDU pressurized heavy water reactors and create recycled fuel for the entire 60-year operational life of one 300 megawatt demonstration. None of these assertions have any science behind it. Not one. Again, these are conjectures. These are opinions. Moltex said is now processing with the engineering, design, and safety analysts of the commercial facility. Just because Moltex says it, does that mean it's real? Of course not. We see the exact same attribute with every single small modular reactor fantasy. Oliver Gregory, licensing manager at Moltex. Licensing manager. They don't even have an application into the regulatory agency, which is a daunting process, which will stretch it to at least a decade before they can start building one. Why are we bothering when we have geothermal everywhere on the planet and it's accessible now? We have the technology now to dig anywhere. Because the minute that the world goes, oh, really? That's the end of the nuclear industry. And so everything we see from the nuclear industry, particularly like you see in this story here, is desperation. That's what we're seeing there. Earlier this month, it was announced that the Moltex Energy Limited, the UK-based parent company of Moltex Flex Limited, Moltex Energy Canada Incorporation, let me go back to that again, is the UK-based parent company of Moltex Canada and Moltex Flex, Moltex Energy Limited, which is United Kingdom. So you should have known right away, and we do because we cover this a lot, that this whole fantasy is because of the unfortunate relationship that Canada has with the United Kingdom, which is a one-sided relationship. We give it everything we got, and they'd poison everything with replicating cells. Same as Iran and Israel will end up doing eventually. Offers are currently being sought to acquire the business and assets of Moltex Energy Limited and or shares in the company's subsidiaries. The deadline for offers is the 7th of May, so there's a deadline. So this whole story was about pumping Moltex on a pedestal so somebody could buy it up because it's a fucking nightmare and nobody wants it. That's all that story was. It shows you how insidious this industry is that it's capable of writing those stories, though. How much do you know about the history of nuclear power? Too much. Way too much. International Atomic Energy Agency chief visited Iran and warns against attacking nuclear sites. That shouldn't even be alive. Like, that's one of the worst creatures. That's far scarier than a dinosaur or a T-Rex or an alligator. He poisons 8 million species every time he farts, that fella. He's a revolting parasite. And he sniffs bicycle seats all the time. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Gross, has warned against attacking Iran's nuclear facilities in light of threats from Washington against Tehran. No, that's Benjamin Netanyahu who went down there and barked at Trump, and Trump panicked and went out there and told the media, get out there and beat the shit out of Iran. And they're like, yes, sir, boss. I think we have always been very, very clear on the fact that attacks on nuclear facilities are not acceptable, makes problems, Sure, the International Atomic Energy Agency covered up Fukushima. The International Degenerate Agency / Atomic Energy Agency still refuses to acknowledge that Reactor 4 was destroyed. You can go download that picture from TEPCO's website. That's not even 1/4 of the building, and whatever's there's no guts in it. That's hanging out of this all around it. For instance, they refuse to acknowledge Reactor 3 blew up. As of August 24, 2023, they're pretending nothing got out, only maybe a bit of tritium from 1,000 alleged tanks that had been filled up with. But we covered that story extensively. You can go to the playlist. There's a 750 tanks maybe, because that's all we can count. And Lord knows we got one of the biggest collections ever of that industry. Strikes have environmental and radiological consequences. Consequences! There's nothing on the planet with an autoimmune trigger that can defend against radioactive fallout. And this is plutonium-239 dispersal covering the whole planet. Every study shows that the animals, and particularly the beagle dogs and beagle puppies, all die of multiple tumors. The most of them will die from skeleton tumors. Liver tumors, and then lung tumors. So the majority dies from the skeleton tumors. So for babies and fledglings of birds and mammals and animals, the baby species of humans, everything else, they're producing radioactive stem cells right away. And by proxy, then it has to be radioactive hormones too. So that's not a way to develop for any species. Right? They can still grow to be adults and everything else, maybe not, and especially for the smaller species like bird, baby, fledglings and stuff like that. Trump has made halting Iran's nuclear weapons ambition a top priority, warning of possible military action should diplomacy fail. If talks aren't successful with Iran, I think Iran is going to be in great danger, Trump said. I think it's the other way, actually. Japan had another quake, 5.1. But that was on an international scale, not the Jap scale. And there was no tsunami warning issued. I wonder, is it because it's on land? Man, these people are just perpetually disgusting, eh? The quake, which occurred at approximately 10 kilometers, very, very shallow, measured a lower 5 on the Jap's seismic intensity Shindu scale of 7. So you take 10 and divide it, take 7 divided into 10, and you got 1.428, and then you multiply that by a lower 5. I put 5.3 times 1.428, 1.43, and you got a 7.6, 7.57, 7.6. So that's a significant earthquake, which is up by the Noto Peninsula, Ishikawa Prefecture, and is most likely part of that 3,500 year tectonic dormant tectonic oh my goodness, I can't even remember the proper terminology. Fun. Good, I finally lost my mind. Probably the best thing could happen to me. Fault line. So there's been a dormant fault line that cracked open on January the 1st, 2024. That had 1,500 landslides and 1,500 aftershocks out on the Noto Peninsula in Ishikawa Prefecture. There was over 6,500 homes, quite a long ways away from the Niigata nuclear site. Outside of that have been compromised by liquefaction. 6,600 or something actually homes were destroyed by liquefaction of the earthquake from the Noto Israel denied plans for imminent attack on Iranian nuclear facility. So April 20th, it was just this swarm of stories. Just absurd. All of these stories, they were hoping was going to cause a knee-jerk reaction in Iran's politics. Of course, that's not going to happen. Right there, there's zero possibility Iran is going to give up their nuclear. It's zero. Enrichment, zero. And that the only saving grace so Iran gets attacked, they're going to attack Israel's nuclear facilities. And it's game on after that, I'm pretty sure. Iran is not just going to attack that, they're going to attack all the assets the American, British, French have, like Qatar and that, and they're going to last a day or two at best. And if Iran doesn't have nuclear, it's going to look just like Ukraine in the near future, right? And it'd probably look like it right now because Israel is probably worried that Iran's got nuclear, but Iran doesn't need nuclear to beat Israel. On top of that, Iran can take out Israel with very sophisticated drones, hypersonic missiles, Scuds, and everything else. It has almost an endless supply of them. They have so many, they can hit Iran or Israel every day with 1,000 of these highly sophisticated weapons. It'll take all their infrastructure out in the first day or two. And they can sustain that for years, which means they can keep building too. So they can sustain this for indefinitely. And Israel can't handle any kind of attack. Israel has never fought a real war. And with the British and the French and coalition, whatever, the Americans, Canadians, they're not going to change that equation at all. Maybe for the first 10 hours, but then it's all over. And Iran is going to take out Israel's nuclear facility. Before Israeli planes make it back from attacking Iran's nuclear facilities, Israel won't have one left, and there's nothing they can do about it. Iran has missiles with dummy missiles that will launch. Each missile will launch, say, 18 dummy missiles, and that will get the attention of the Israeli defensive system. And then in comes, and there's a very expensive process to try to take out all of these. You don't know if they're real weapons or not. And then right behind that comes 18 real missiles. And so they can sustain that daily. Israel will be in the dark immediately. And Iran now has been bullied for so many decades, they just don't care anymore. And if they don't have nuclear weapons, then they're going to end up just like Ukraine. They know it. They're not naive. They're not gullible. They're not stupid. Let's just run through this story. Israel denied plans for imminent attack on Iranian nuclear facility. This is meant to get a knee-jerk reaction out of Iran, right? There's a whole lot of stories all day yesterday, all day today. I haven't been able to keep up with it because I'm just recovering. I was pretty sick last week, my goodness. I was wondering at one point last week, was that it for me? Was that the end of it all? And barely got a show in the night, right? So it's not going to be a full show. It's just going to be a show. Israel is committed to the objective of preventing Iran from having nuclear weapons. So what? Do you think Iran gives a shit what Israel is committed to? They're not very committed because they haven't done nothing to stop it. Yeah, they'll come out. They got all kinds of propaganda and conjectures, but they got no facts that they accomplished any of those attributes. Anonymous Israeli officials told Reuters that the Israeli government has not, get the Geiger count out of the way, has not ruled out launching an attack on Iran's nuclear facility in the near future. Of course they have. If they attack Iran, Iran's going to attack theirs. You can put in all this to make yourself feel good, but it's not going to make any difference to Israel's position at all. Launching an attack on Iran's nuclear facility is going to result, before the planes make it back from that, they might not even have an airport to land at, and the nuclear facilities in Israel are going to be gone. What's that going to happen? And Iran is most likely going to wait till the winds are blowing the right way before they take out Israel's facilities, so the whole country now is a shelter in place because of radiation fallout. Launching an attack on Iran's nuclear facility will result in an immediate catastrophic repercussion for all their infrastructure, their water filtration, their power, and their nuclear facilities. And their nuclear bases, their nuclear weapons facilities. Don't think for a second Iran don't know where all that's told. In Washington Post, the least trustworthy sources is the mainstream media. They're the absolute least trustworthy source on the planet. Because we've been covering it for 23 years, this stuff. Like we can postulate ourselves much more accurately than they're ever in a moment ever going to. Has reported that the Israelis looking to seize the moment to carry out an attack against the Iranian nuclear facility if diplomatic efforts with Tehran fail. Again, this is just meant in their little compartmentalized world is to put pressure on Iran. Iran don't read it and don't give a shit about anything they're saying. And is ready to act with or without the backing of the United States. No, they're not. They have zero possibility of surviving more than 4 or 5 days without the big guns behind them. They know it. All their tanks are made from America. All their jet fighters are made with America. They need parts. They're very expensive. There's nothing cheap about it. They need enormous amount of resources and maintenance. They can't do anything without the Americans there to help them. And the British and the French, right? Trump has repeatedly threatened Iran with a bombing campaign in weeks leading up to negotiations. Which means you're not going to, like... It's like going out and beating a big dog every day. And that's at the end of his chain and can't get away from you. And then beating every day. And then the day he goes out and takes the chain off and is the last day you do that. Israel Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, his real name is not Benjamin Netanyahu. His last name, rather. He's a Polak, right? I can't remember what his real name is, but it ain't Netanyahu, that's for sure. He took that name to sound more Israeli, like the rest of them in the administrations there, right? Israeli degenerate, moron, who should be in jail, would be in jail, is wanted by the international criminal courts on top of that. But is also, he knows the minute that he's replaced or steps down, he's going to jail. He's going to court. He's already in court all the time, but he's going to be arrested. The only thing now is he has not diplomatic immunity, but he has immunity because he's the president of a military-industrial complex country. The whole country is a military country, right? Everybody works in the military, and they're all unbelievably brainwashed. They're not allowed to have a dissenting voice. That is stomped out immediately. Because that's how a coward society works, right? Israeli Prime Minister Dipstick affirmed his commitment Saturday preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, declaring he would not waver in the effort. There's nothing he can do about it. There's nothing he can do about it. China tests a non-nuclear hydrogen bomb. Here's what it's capable of. Whenever you see a headline like that, it makes you sick to your guts, don't it? China PLA tests a clean energy. That showed up multiple times. Cleaner energy. Multiple times in this story. Weapons. It's not a nuclear weapon, so it doesn't have radioactive fallout. So therefore, it's a clean energy bomb. Did you ever hear anything that stupid before? Oh, it's a clean energy bomb, Dana. If a nuclear bomb or something that has the same attributes as a nuclear bomb for power blows up your community or your city, do you really... Is the damage... Is the people who die going to cure? Unlike traditional nuclear bombs, this device employs a magnesium-based solid-state hydrogen storage material known as magnesium hydrate. Cleaner energy. So if you took the author of this story and you roasted them alive over a barbecue or over a geothermal barbecue, which one would you prefer? weighing 2 kilograms, were developed by the China State Shipbuilding Corporation. So why is the shipbuilding corporation making massive weapons? Like so confusing when you hear, well, no, it wasn't a military-industrial complex that made it. It was a shipbuilding corporation, Dana. So the average person, their brain goes, and they wander away from the TV set right away, or the media. The initial blast smashes the magnesium hydride powder into tiny fragments, freeing up fresh surfaces as those fragments heat up. They release hydrogen gas. It mixes with the surrounding air. And once there's enough hydrogen in the air, it lights up in a second. A much hotter fireball. That extra heat then cracks more magnesium hydride open, releasing more hydrogen and creating a self-feeding combustion loop. So once you scale that up, that could be a continent destroyer. Earlier this year, a mass production facility for magnesium hydride was inaugurated in the Sanix province, capable of producing 150 tons each year. Until recently, it could only be produced in laboratories at the rate of a few grams per day. How can this not end stupid, I wonder? Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, the new computer, I really like the new computer. It just sits here now. I don't have to shift it all the time. Oh. James Lucid donated another 300, almost 350 last week too. Which, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Which, because I had to pick up a whole bunch of pharmaceuticals. I was back and forth to the city for 2 days straight. Very humbling for me sometimes. But it's so important that we're here as much as we can, and if people don't donate, we're just barely keeping it together now. So links are in the bottom of the description for anybody that might be able to contribute. The best way is PayPal. You can do it through my site with any credit cards. You can use the same credit cards at PayPal. You don't need a PayPal account. You can use debit accounts, anything at PayPal, to donate. Let me see what we got here. And we were late getting the show up and running. At the wrong time. I didn't get the right time on my other computer. Oh, I'm glad I got a show tonight. That's fantastic. I'm going to be a bit slow for the next couple of days. Hopefully I'm still doing shows each day, but I'm in a better spot than I was at the beginning of last week, like health-wise. China is actively monitoring its military capabilities by integrating clean energy technologies. I can't read that stuff without laughing at it. This is crazy. Survey finds parties. Next story is another Israeli story, I think. And man, Benjamin Netanyahu, whatever the hell his last name really is, the Polak. What a strange creature he turned out to be. Can anybody prove he's actually human? Survey finds parties reject call for Canadian nuclear weapons. Survey. This was the Ukraine Congress here in Canada. Because Canada has a Ukrainian Congress. Imagine, wrap your mind around that statement. No major federal party supports developing Canadian nuclear weapons, according to Ukrainian Canadian Congress survey. Remember, we covered stories about this. It was kind of snuck out there And we thought it was a Canadian idiot political thing doing it. No, this was the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, which has almost gone the way of the dodo bird, which kidnapped over 1 million people off the streets, put them in shitty uniforms, put them out on the front lines where they're immediately slaughtered by drones that'll chase them around trees and wherever and then just blow them up. Chase them around and around and around a tree, like a full tree. We've seen lots of videos of that. And then blow them up. If it doesn't kill him, if it only blows his arm off or her arm off, there comes another drone. It'll chase him around the tree until it blows them up. The cruelest, the most heartless and soulless thing I've ever seen. And I have probably 600 of those videos gathered up, way more than I'll ever need to tell the story. But I feel that I should aggregate all of that stuff because the enormity of where we're headed with that technology. Russia presents a serious growing threat to Canada's sovereignty, the Arctic, and to our NATO allies. So here they are trying to turn Canada. Like Canada was baking cookies. So Zelensky, children in school were encouraged to bake cookies and sell them to give the monies to Zelensky so he can buy more weapons. I've never seen nothing like that before. We don't have a media. We have a scumbag machine. The future of Canada's freedom is avoiding anything to do with Ukraine, that's for sure. Proposal for Canadian nuclear program was detailed in the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress. Piece of shit. Parasites. Speaking of parasites, Trump blocked Israel striking Iranian's nuclear reactor. No, this is posturing. They're not going to attack the nuclear facilities. They're not going to get away with it. They know it now. Oh, look, American plane in Israel. Go figure, eh? Israel only exists because American gives them all the weapons. Israel's never fought a real military. They can't win against a real military. They'll be wiped out in 4 days. Security fears over mini nuclear plant network with thousands more police needed. So the United Kingdom this is just madness to even consider it, is going to put small modular reactors everywhere. They're going to be everywhere. If you want one, all you do is call up the government. They'll send one over right away in the back of a lorry. They need thousands of more police to protect the small modular reactors, the dirty bombs. Again, another idiot moron ran a fake picture, right? And you got police walk. This is nuclear police. These are special idiots from the Civil Nuclear Constabulary. And they walk around farmers' fields close, which all nuclear plants are surrounded by farm fields because you can't contain the emissions from the fuel pools. It could face greater challenge policing small modular reactors. Sir, imagine what kind of bootlicker he must have been. Stammer has pledged to rip up the rules governing the nuclear industry and rip up all the checks and balances to fast track the fabled small modular reactors. There is no small modular reactors. What do they think they're going to be? And like Britain is never going to be first. Low carbon, these people are nuts. They feel that if they keep saying this, right, then they can keep up the charade for a bit longer. Dana, drink cinnamon, apple, or green matcha mocha tea. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I do drink cinnamon. I also drink, I can't even remember off the top of my head now. My brain did. I take chlorine. I sip chlorine dioxide every hour. There's a little sip, right? It's for the parasites. I take oregano oil. Just little drops, right? 1 or 2 drops twice a day. I also have the bigger oregano oil that's in capsules that I do twice a week. Just really good for you, right? And take turmeric pills, vitamin B1. I take vitamin C. I take zinc. And zinc's really good for you if your skin is bad. Zinc is really good. And I was going to talk about something like that tonight, and I forgot what it is off the top of my head, what people should consider taking. Zinc's really good for you, though, because a lot of people are zinc deficient. Zinc's so good for your skin. You'll see results. If you got bad skin, you'll see results within a week. Significant results that'll make you happy. Anybody go and buy zinc, right? And I take all kinds of supplements, trace supplements. Like I'll take, the pills with the whole supplements. I also take Celtic salt, which has around 90 minerals, whereas table salt has 2. And just a little pinch, a decent pinch, and I use a shot glass of water, and I'll leave it there for half an hour, make sure it's all dissolved. I'll slug that back into me. But everybody should be using Celtic salt. Any health store you can get it. Let me keep going here. However, security analysts cautioned arrangement for guarding small modular reactors from terrorists. I mean, the whole country now has been invaded. And they hate the British. I've been gathering that documentation. So, I don't say stuff. I don't make assertions about things that I can't back up immediately. That I don't have the documentation that is overwhelming and sitting right at my fingertips all the time, right? So normally I'll show you all the documentations. Tonight's not my best night. Let me keep rolling here. And they told the I paper that thousands more armed officers could be required to defend these dirty bomb sites, which may be located near towns and cities, plus the vehicles carrying their radioactive fuel. Like when you're moving fuel, this stuff is splitting atoms. Everything is vented into the environment on the highways in the communities. The UK's 5 existing nuclear power stations are guarded by this is hilarious, by specialist officers from the Civil Nuclear Constabulary. Do you think they have ever used their guns? Do you think they're on the site looking like that anywhere? And on top of that, what are you talking about? Nobody's going to go near high-level nuclear waste. That's a lethal dose right away. Well, the mystique is meant to justify. It's just another way to steal money from the incredible vulnerable taxpayers in those countries. Will be a target for those of hostile intent. See, James Lucid just put up a new song. Can't wait, man. I love this stuff. He's only one song away from 300 anti-nuclear songs. James, slow down. I'm not ready yet. Doesn't matter. You keep posting, buddy. But we're going to do something special for 300 anti-nuclear songs because that is amazing. That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that somebody could do that. He's got so many. Let me bring it up for a second here. He's got so many. He now dwarfs all anti-nuclear music worldwide. He dwarfs it, ever created. He dwarfs that. I mean, he's got some amazing songs. And I got a playlist. Let me just introduce you to that. You come to that first playlist, full playlist. There's like 60 songs there. I'm late to the game for that kind of stuff. I just decided because I can't keep track of all the songs I love these songs. I can't keep track of them all. If you go to the bottom, that's the most recent one I put in the playlist, which was 5 days ago. And if you come up to the top of that playlist, like Nuclear Jamaica is just an amazing song. But he's producing the videos now. He's filmmaking with AI. So the musics are AI, the films are AI. But his AI hasn't caught up yet to James. It's got a way to go before it can catch up to James. He's so far ahead of AI. When AI shows up, it's gonna be insane what he can do. It's already insane. And so Fukushima Girl, Meltdown Queen is an amazing song, Meltdown Queen, Radioactive Wayne. And we're going to try to do this in Dr. Sternglass. Like the songs that I'm putting there are my favorites, right? I don't know about your favorites. But I think personally it's impossible not to like every song that I got there in the list. And the idea was just to give people, because he has 300 songs, so to give people something guaranteed to get them addicted to that music would be that playlist, right? And so as they start going through the playlist, they become more open-minded to the music. And he's got many different genres. It's extraordinary. It's one of the best things I ever seen in my life, by far. Oh, some spanners are showing up. Is Iran doomed like Ukraine without nuclear weapons? Yeah, of course they are. They've been under siege now for decades. So clearly, they're doomed. Unless the restrictions are going to be removed, there's no way the country can prosper, right? Oh, well, we might as well finish off that last story, because that is the last story. Then we're going to play James's latest song. And then he's only one song away now from 300 songs. I just can't even wrap my mind around it. I really can't, right? I think it's one of the greatest things ever. I don't think it. I know it is. Will be a target for those of hostile intent. Well, the country's been invaded. Look at this, nothing stupider. Walking around with their machine guns in a farmer's field. Don't shoot the sheep, buddy. And don't do other things to that sheep either, there, buddy. Patrolling remote areas. Like, if you go to that field yourself with a Geiger counter, they might shoot you. They'll certainly arrest you. They'll certainly make your life miserable. Their job is to keep you away from there with Geiger counters and cameras and everything else. These are patrolled by specialist officers. You're not a specialist. Specialists in what? In what? In wasting the day? Nobody's going to a nuclear plant. The spokesperson, the biggest threat to the nuclear plant is from a compromised academic and scientist at the site. Not some random person. They need that fear thing, right, to justify the absurd amount of money they're spending on their stupid uniforms. A spokesperson for the Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero. I've never heard the word net zero, which is a paper written by Miles Allen. I've got a cushy job at Cambridge in UK right now. For United Nations took that narrative then and weaponized it against humanity, right? The so-called net zero. And BP Oil is the one that came up with this zero carbon footprint after they had an oil tanker run up on the coastline and contaminated thousands of square miles of species. All new nuclear in the United Nations jacked that too and then weaponized against humanity. All new nuclear projects, including small modular reactors that don't exist here, why are we talking about this when it don't even exist, are prevented from being built in densely populated areas in the United Kingdom. Well, they don't have there's nobody in the United Kingdom with an application into the regulatory agency for a full license, the full application's designs. It's all fantasy, right? The Prime Minister, the current idiot, Says his plan means nuclear sites can be built anywhere across England and Wales except for big cities. So all the little communities, because they can't contain the emissions from the fuel pools. And then they always get the stupidest designs that are never going to be anything to do with the real reactors. Even if they, like the Canadian small modular reactors is a 24-story building, for goodness sakes. It's bigger than Fukushima reactors, which were 190 foot, 65 meters, 19-story buildings. Each small modular reactor should be able to power 1 million homes. No. It's absurd as suggested. The idea of it, that's a large reactor can power 1 million homes. A small one has no hope at all. Right? And it's running, in order to produce any significant amount of power, it has to do that by using the monstrous and hideous and sadistic plutonium mixed oxide fuel, which is a curse on humanity just on its own merits. National adversaries could also cause enormous disruption by spreading bogus rumors. So any dissenting voices is considered a rumor. Right, so they're setting the stage right now for people to ignore any common sense is what they're doing, right? And look at the size of this small modular reactor. It's massive. It's got nothing to do with small. The only thing small is the people's minds that buy into this. The government is due to announce this summer which small modular reactor designs it will commission. On the short list is Rolls-Royce, which is 500 megawatts. It's got nothing to do with small. It's as big as a typical reactor in a lot of countries. The Hitachi, which is the 24-story building. Holtec, which has no design, no applications, no license in the regulatory agency, is ran by Chris Singh, who's everything from the janitor to the executives, the same guy. And Westinghouse, which was bankrupt in North America. All the usual suspects. And the degenerate spokesperson from the government agency said any small modular reactor design will have to have the highest levels of security. Thank you very much. All right. Easiest part of the night. La 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 la. Bump. Sorry. So we're going to close the poll after. 19 votes. Brutalized again. That's a great poll. That's a great poll, isn't it? How do you hate me now? Oh, that's better. I feel much better. I got a show in. Got that new computer working. So now we got James got a new song, 3 views. They got him censored pretty heavily, right? This James Lucid. Sweet. He's 1 song away from 300 songs. That is an amazing achievement on its own. 100 songs, anti-nuclear songs, is an amazing achievement. 300, and he's not even started in the context of what AI is capable of. It still hasn't caught up to him. He's waiting for AI to catch up to him. Aftermath of the meltdown, AI genre channeling session. It's a 2.5 minute song. Set my timer here so I know when to fade out. Because a lot of times I'll see the number but I'll forget it, right? And then I'm like, how long was the song? Because I'm listening to it. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show. Hopefully tomorrow night. I still got to adjust the audio before I go live. I'll turn it down, go to high quality. I'm going to adjust the audio for you on my side in real time. All right. I'll adjust the audio. Just have a bit of faith into me. See everybody on the next show. Good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you make it this far. Be appreciated.
April the 24th, year of the long decline. The ridge lay brittle neath a waning sky, and the breeze, though sharp, bore no bird song. Below Donna's trace, I wandered into what once was a meadow, now dry and static. The pine stood, yes, steadfast as stone, but without the flicker of moth, nor the tick of beetle beneath bark. Their minute engines of flight, their spring-born arrangements, gone. Not all at once, but year upon year, they dropped from the ledger of the living. I recall, just a league hence, the steady hymn of bees upon lupine bloom. This morn I pressed my ear to the same soil, and heard only breeze. The learned attribute this to cycles, to frost or drift in bloom and bud. But I saw what fell in the year of the quiet sky. It was no frost, it was fire of a finer design. In decades past, the scholars spoke with candor. Their notes bore the stamp of clarity. But now, the discipline stammers. They are perplexed, mystified, alarmed, baffled, as though nature had become a cipher. As though they did not chart the snow crab's lost, as though the sea stars did not fall to rot, as though the warbler's song did not vanish mid-air. I read their reports, formally worded, professionally distant, and each ends the same. Stressors likely, collapse multifold, data incomplete, analysis pending. They name every god but the one that split the core. Even now, as the pine rings thin and tide pools fall to crusted stone, they will not speak of what rides the wind. They will not speak of what rides the wind. They will not speak of what rides the wind. They will not speak of what rides the wind. They will not speak.